Act as if nothing bothers you. The Buddhist way, life in the modern world, seems to have become a ceaseless storm of noise, expectation, and distraction. Every day we are confronted with events that challenge our composure, words that sting, disappointments that unsettle, plans that crumble, and circumstances that spiral beyond our control. For many, peace of mind feels like a fragile treasure, easily stolen by the careless act of another or the unexpected changes that life inevitably brings. Yet within the teachings of Buddhism, there lies a profound and liberating truth. Nothing external has the power to disturb the essence of your inner calm unless you grant it that permission. To act as if nothing bothers you is not to pretend or to numb yourself, but to cultivate a deep and unshakable resilience, a state of being where life's turbulence meets the ocean of your equanimity and is dissolved. Buddhism, since its inception through the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, has offered humanity a way to rise above suffering, not by denying it, but by transforming our relationship with it. The Buddhist way does not promise the elimination of challenges. Rather, it points toward the mastery of our responses to them. It teaches us to see that the world will always shift, people will always change, and conditions will always evolve. If our peace depends on the permanence of things that are inherently impermanent, we will forever be slaves to disappointment. But if we anchor ourselves in the timeless truths of mindfulness, compassion, and detachment, we begin to live with a dignity that no insult can diminish, no loss can erase, and no storm can overwhelm. This exploration is not about the superficial advice to simply ignore your problems or to feign indifference to what genuinely matters. Instead, it is about embodying a higher state of awareness where what once bothered you no longer holds the power it once did. It is about seeing insults as echoes of ignorance, failures as teachers in disguise, and setbacks as steps in the journey rather than walls blocking your path. To act as if nothing bothers you, in the Buddhist way, is to embody freedom. Freedom from the chains of reactivity, freedom from the prisons of anger and anxiety, and freedom from the endless chase for validation. In the following chapters, we will walk through this path in depth. Each section will unravel how Buddhist wisdom trains the mind to remain calm in the face of adversity, how it reshapes our understanding of attachment and control, how it teaches us to dissolve the ego's endless cravings, and how it helps us cultivate compassion not only toward others, but also toward ourselves. By the end, you will see that acting as if nothing bothers you is not a mask you wear, but the natural fragrance of a mind that has realized its own boundless strength. The nature of suffering and the power of non-reactivity. From the very first sermon the Buddha delivered after his enlightenment, suffering was placed at the heart of his teaching. The first noble truth acknowledges dukkha, the universal dissatisfaction, stress, and unease that permeate life. No matter how comfortable or successful one's circumstances may seem, life carries with it the inevitabilities of loss, sickness, aging, and death. Beyond these, even in the small everyday experiences, suffering arises when desires go unfulfilled, when pleasures fade, or when expectations clash with reality. To live, the Buddha taught, is to encounter suffering. Yet, the recognition of suffering is not intended to leave us hopeless. Rather, it serves as the gateway to freedom. Once we see suffering clearly, we also recognize that much of our torment does not arise directly from external events, but from the way our minds cling to them, resist them, or interpret them. If someone insults you, the words themselves are mere vibrations in the air. The sting you feel comes from the meaning your mind attaches to those sounds, the story you weave around them, and the ego's desire to be validated and protected. If a plan collapses, the disappointment arises not from the collapse itself, but from the expectation that it would unfold according to your design. When we begin to see this, we discover the immense power of non-reactivity, the ability to let life be as it is without allowing it to dictate the state of our inner being. Non-reactivity is not passivity, nor is it indifference. It does not mean refusing to act when action is needed, nor pretending that pain is pleasant. Instead, it means cultivating a space between the event and your response, a pause that allows wisdom rather than impulse to guide your next step. Imagine a still lake reflecting the sky. When a stone is thrown into it, the ripples disturb the surface. In most of our lives, every word, every circumstance, every small inconvenience is like a stone that unsettles us. But through mindfulness and practice, we can train our minds to remain clear, reflecting life without being shattered by it. The stone may still fall, but the lake need not lose its stillness. Consider, for example, the practice of meditation. In mindfulness meditation, one observes thoughts and sensations as they arise, without clinging to them or pushing them away. An itch may appear on the skin, and rather than immediately scratching it, the practitioner simply notices it. Itching, itching. A memory may surface, and instead of diving into it, one labels it thinking, thinking. And in this simple exercise lies a profound transformation. You learn that experiences come and go like clouds across the sky. None of them define the sky itself. Similarly, the insults, the frustrations, and the disappointments of daily life are like passing weather. If you do not grasp them, they cannot linger. If you do not resist them, they cannot grow into storms. The Buddha compared the mind to a fire. When desire, hatred, and delusion fuel it, the flames consume us, burning everything in their path. But when these fires are extinguished, what remains is peace. Acting as if nothing bothers you, in the Buddhist way, is not a performance. It is the result of extinguishing the flames of reactivity. It is the ability to encounter insult and remain unshaken, to face uncertainty without fear, and to experience loss without collapsing into despair. This is not because the world has ceased to bring challenges, but because your mind has ceased to hand over its peace to every passing condition. Yet this transformation requires discipline. The mind has been conditioned for years, even decades, to react impulsively. Anger flares when you are criticized, jealousy arises when others succeed, and anxiety appears when the future is uncertain. To retrain the mind is no small task. But Buddhism offers a path. Through mindfulness, meditation, and ethical conduct, you gradually weaken the patterns of reactivity and strengthen the qualities of equanimity and compassion. Every time you resist the urge to lash out, every time you allow a thought to pass without feeding it, every time you meet pain with understanding rather than resistance, you deepen your capacity to remain unbothered. It is important to note that non-reactivity does not mean becoming a stone, incapable of feeling. In fact, the more deeply you practice, the more sensitive you become to the subtleties of life. You may feel the sting of harsh words, the sorrow of loss, or the uncertainty of change. But instead of drowning in these waves, you allow them to rise and fall without resistance. In that allowing, they lose their power to enslave you. You feel everything, but nothing controls you. This is the essence of acting as if nothing bothers you, a state of profound freedom where life continues in all its complexity, yet your inner peace remains unshaken. Think of the example of a seasoned monk who walks through a busy marketplace. People rush past, vendors shout, children cry, and yet the monk's presence radiates stillness. It is not because the noise has ceased, but because his mind does not cling to or resist it. His calmness is not an act, it is the fruit of practice. You too can cultivate this presence. It does not require withdrawing from the world, but rather transforming your relationship to it. Every insult, every frustration, every disappointment can become an opportunity to practice non-reactivity, to remember that your peace is not at the mercy of external conditions. Ultimately, to act as if nothing bothers you is to embody the truth of impermanence. Every event, no matter how disturbing, will pass. Every feeling, no matter how intense, will dissolve. When you anchor yourself in this truth, you see that it is futile to allow fleeting events to dictate the vast expanse of your inner sky. You learn to meet life with a gentle smile, knowing that what seems overwhelming today will be but a memory tomorrow. And in that smile lies the strength of one who is truly free. If you are seeking to live with such strength and clarity, let this be your path. Practice mindfulness. Sit in silence. Observe your thoughts. Question your cravings. Meet your pain with compassion. And above all, remember that peace is not something you find outside. It is something you uncover within once you stop handing over your calm to every passing disturbance. This is the Buddhist way, the way of acting as if nothing bothers you, not because you are blind to life's storms, but because you have learned to stand unshaken in their midst. And now, if this message resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you join a community dedicated to inner growth, resilience, and wisdom. Let this journey continue, and may you walk each step with greater peace. Detachment, impermanence, and the freedom of letting go. To act as if nothing bothers you in the Buddhist way requires more than cultivating moments of calmness or fleeting resilience. It requires a fundamental transformation in how we view life itself, particularly our relationship with impermanence and attachment. One of the greatest sources of human suffering is not the external world, but the internal clinging we develop toward people, objects, ideas, and identities. The Buddha described attachment as a chain that binds us to cycles of sorrow, for when we cling to what is destined to change, we are bound to suffer when change inevitably arrives. Detachment, therefore, is not an absence of love or care, but the recognition that everything in existence is transient, and because of that, peace cannot depend on grasping what will one day slip away. To live as if nothing bothers you is to cultivate this recognition so deeply that the shifting sands of life no longer shake the foundation of your inner being. Imagine holding a handful of sand tightly in your fist. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers, leaving you frustrated and empty. Yet if you hold the sand with an open hand, it rests gently, and though grains may fall, there is no struggle. Life is like this. When we try to clutch at relationships, possessions, or even our own self-image, we experience constant tension and fear. Fear of losing what we hold, fear of change, fear of impermanence. But when we release the need to grasp and instead allow life to flow, we find freedom. Detachment does not mean rejecting life, but embracing it fully without demanding that it remain as we wish it to be. It is a profound yes to the truth of impermanence. Buddhism teaches that everything is anicca, impermanent. Flowers bloom and fade, seasons change, bodies age, circumstances evolve. Even the emotions and thoughts we experience are impermanent. Joy arises, lingers, and dissolves. Anger flares and then fades. Yet we suffer because we resist this truth. We want joy to last forever and pain to vanish instantly. We want relationships to remain unchanged, youth to stay, and comfort to be permanent. But life does not work this way, and the refusal to accept impermanence is the very root of our suffering. To act as if nothing bothers you is, in essence, to live in harmony with impermanence. It is to understand that when something is lost, it was always destined to pass. When something changes, it is following the natural law of the universe. The problem is not impermanence itself, but our insistence that life should be otherwise. Consider grief. When a loved one passes away, the sorrow can feel unbearable. Buddhism does not deny this pain, nor suggest that one should pretend it does not matter. But it offers the perspective that grief is a reflection of love, and love itself is precious because it arises within impermanence. If everything were eternal and unchanging, there would be no urgency, no beauty in presence. Because time is fleeting, each moment becomes sacred. Detachment allows us to grieve with compassion, but without being destroyed by loss. It allows us to remember that love is not diminished by impermanence, but made meaningful by it. In this way, detachment is not coldness, but the highest form of love, a love that does not demand, does not chain, but allows freedom. Another way attachment entangles us is through the ego. We cling to an identity. I am this, I am that. I must be seen in this way. When others challenge or insult that identity, we feel shattered. If someone questions our worth, we feel defensive or angry. This shows how fragile the ego is and how much power we hand over to others to disturb our peace. Detachment from ego means seeing that the self we cling to is not fixed, but ever-changing. What you call you today is not the same as yesterday. The cells in your body have changed, your thoughts have shifted, your emotions have transformed. The Buddha described the self as anatta, without a permanent essence. To cling to an identity is to cling to smoke, for it shifts constantly. When you realize this, insults lose their sting. Praise and blame become like wind passing through the trees. You act as if nothing bothers you, not because you suppress your feelings, but because you see that nothing anyone says can alter the essence of what you truly are. A being of impermanence, a process, not a fixed object. In practical life, detachment allows you to experience the world with lightness. Imagine you lose your job. Without detachment, the mind spirals. This is terrible. My life is ruined. I am worthless. With detachment, you acknowledge the pain, but also see the broader picture. Jobs are impermanent, circumstances shift, and this ending may become the soil for a new beginning. You are not defined by this role. You are not shackled by this event. Instead of being crushed, you adapt or consider relationships. When you cling to another person with desperation, fear arises. What if they leave me? What if they change? But with detachment, love becomes free. You can care deeply for someone while recognizing they are not yours to control, and their presence in your life is a gift, not a possession. This shift reduces jealousy, anxiety, and conflict, allowing love to flourish with compassion rather than fear. The practice of mindfulness strengthens this detachment. When you observe your own thoughts and emotions without judgment, you begin to see their impermanent nature. A wave of anger comes, burns hot, and then dissolves. If you cling to it, feeding it with thoughts of revenge or injustice, it lingers and grows. But if you observe it, naming it as anger without clinging, it passes naturally. This practice reveals the truth that no emotion defines you, and no thought controls you unless you allow it. You are the awareness in which they arise and fade, not the contents themselves. This insight gradually frees you from being enslaved by passing moods or external triggers. You act as if nothing bothers you because you know that whatever arises is temporary and therefore unworthy of being given ultimate power. Yet detachment is often misunderstood. Many fear it means apathy, coldness, or a withdrawal from life. In truth, it is the opposite. Detachment allows you to engage more deeply with life because you are no longer blinded by fear of loss. When you know that nothing is permanent, you savor each moment fully. You drink the coffee not as a routine, but as a fleeting gift. You hold a friend's hand with gratitude, knowing this moment will never return. You walk through nature and notice its beauty without demanding it last forever. Detachment makes life vivid, not dull. It allows you to care without clinging, to love without fear, and to act without being enslaved by outcomes. In Zen Buddhism, there is a teaching often referred to as letting go or be dragged. It's when you cling to what is gone, you are dragged through suffering. When you cling to expectations, you are dragged by disappointment. To act as if nothing bothers you, you must let go. This does not mean rejecting effort or refusing to set goals. It means acting wholeheartedly while releasing the illusion of control. You plant seeds, you water them, but you know that rain, soil, and sun play their roles beyond your command. You act wisely and diligently, but without clinging to results. This way, success brings joy without arrogance, and failure brings lessons without despair. You remain steady, like a tree that does not shake when the wind changes direction. The recognition of impermanence also transforms how we deal with others. When someone is angry with you, you see their anger as a passing cloud. Instead of reacting defensively, you hold space for their emotion to rise and fall. You remember that just as your feelings come and go, so do theirs. Compassion arises naturally, for you see that their anger is not who they are, but a temporary storm. This insight allows you to remain calm, to act with kindness, and to avoid escalating conflict. You act as if nothing bothers you, because you no longer take everything personally. You understand that people's actions are shaped by their own suffering, their own impermanent states, and therefore you meet them not with hostility, but with equanimity. One of the most powerful examples of detachment is found in the life of the Buddha himself. After attaining enlightenment, he faced criticism, slander, and even attempts on his life, yet he remained serene. When insulted, he responded with calm words, often pointing out that insults only harm those who cling to them. His peace was not dependent on external approval. He understood impermanence, saw beyond ego, and lived in detachment. This is the model Buddhism offers us, not withdrawal from life, but participation with unshakable calm. To practice detachment in daily life, begin with awareness. Notice when you are clinging, whether to possessions, relationships, or expectations. Ask yourself, am I holding with a closed fist or an open hand? Then, gently loosen your grip. Remind yourself of impermanence. Say, this too shall pass. Not as a cliché, but as a profound truth. Practice gratitude for the present moment without demanding it last. In this way, you train the mind to accept change, to release fear, and to find peace in the flow of life. Gradually, you will find that fewer things disturb you. What once triggered anxiety or anger becomes lighter. You begin to live as if nothing bothers you, not by suppressing emotion, but by aligning with the truth of impermanence. Over time, this practice brings immense freedom. When you lose something, you grieve, but you do not collapse. When someone insults you, you hear the words, but you do not hand over your calm. When life changes unexpectedly, you adapt rather than resist. This is the freedom of detachment, the ability to live fully engaged in the world without being chained by it. You become like the lotus flower that grows in muddy water, yet remains unstained. The world around you continues with its turbulence, but you rise above it, serene and untouched. This is the essence of the Buddhist way of acting, as if nothing bothers you. And so, if this wisdom speaks to your heart and you wish to continue walking this path of freedom and clarity, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. Together we will explore deeper teachings, practices, and insights to help you cultivate peace no matter what storms arise. Join us and let us build a community that lives with calm, compassion, and wisdom. Mastering the mind, the Buddhist path to unshakable calm. The essence of acting as if nothing bothers you lies in the mastery of the mind. Every experience we live passes first through the filter of our consciousness, and it is within that filter that suffering or serenity takes root. Buddhism has always placed the mind at the center of liberation, for it is not the world itself that disturbs us, but the way we perceive, interpret, and respond to it. If someone insults you, the words themselves are vibrations in the air, neutral in nature. The disturbance arises from the mind attaching meaning, weaving a story of injury and fueling emotions like anger or shame. If circumstances change, it is not the change itself that torments us, but the mind's clinging to how things used to be or its fear of the uncertain. Thus the key to living unbothered is to discipline and refine the mind until it becomes a clear mirror reflecting reality without distortion, responding to life with wisdom rather than impulse. The Buddha compared the mind to a wild elephant. powerful and untamed, capable of destruction if left uncontrolled. Training the mind is like training that elephant with patience, persistence, and gentleness. Through practice, the very force that once trampled peace becomes a source of strength and stability. When you act as if nothing bothers you, you are not pretending to be indifferent. You are expressing the result of a mind so well trained that external events no longer dictate your internal state. This mastery does not come overnight. It requires cultivation, just as a farmer patiently tends to the soil, removing weeds, watering seeds, and allowing the crop to grow in its own season. One of the most profound tools in mastering the mind is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in the moment, aware of thoughts, feelings, and sensations without clinging to them or pushing them away. When you are mindful, you notice the rise of anger before it takes control. You observe the spark of anxiety before it becomes a blaze. Instead of being swept away by these mental currents, you stand on the shore watching them pass. This shift is transformative because it reveals a fundamental truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which they arise. When you deeply realize this, you gain a distance from the mental chatter that used to control you. Anger is no longer my anger. It is simply anger arising and passing. Fear is no longer my fear. It is simply fear arising and passing. This recognition weakens the power of mental states to disturb you. Another aspect of mastering the mind is understanding the nature of craving. The Buddha identified craving, or tanha, as the root of suffering. The mind constantly craves pleasure, success, recognition, and permanence. When these cravings are met, the mind temporarily rejoices, but soon a new craving arises. When cravings are not met, frustration, disappointment, or despair arises. This endless cycle keeps us restless and easily disturbed. To act as if nothing bothers you, you must see through this cycle and loosen the grip of craving. This does not mean suppressing desires, but observing them with clarity. When a craving arises, notice it. Desire is here. See how it pulls the mind, how it creates tension. With practice, you learn to neither indulge it blindly nor fight it aggressively, but to let it be, knowing it too will pass. Over time, the mind becomes less enslaved by craving, more at ease in the present moment, and less vulnerable to disturbance. Equally important in mastering the mind is recognizing the role of aversion. Just as we crave what we want, we resist what we dislike. The mind says, "This must not happen, this must not be." When reality does not match these demands, agitation arises. Aversion, like craving, fuels suffering. The practice is to notice aversion when it arises. Instead of reacting with anger or fear, you observe, aversion is here. By doing this, you weaken its grip. You begin to see that both craving and aversion are movements of the mind, not truths you must obey. When you live from this understanding, external events lose their power to control you. The weather may change, people may disappoint you, plans may fail, but your mind remains free because it no longer clings or resists. It accepts reality as it is and moves wisely within it. Meditation is the foundation of this training. In meditation, you sit with yourself and watch the mind. At first, it may feel chaotic, thoughts racing, emotions swirling, distractions everywhere. But gradually, through persistent practice, the mind settles. You begin to experience moments of stillness, clarity, and insight. These moments expand with time, and the qualities developed in meditation spill over into daily life. A person who meditates regularly learns to pause before reacting, to observe without judgment, and to respond with calmness. This is not an escape from the world, but a preparation to engage with it more wisely. Just as a warrior trains daily, so that in battle their movements are natural and unshaken, so too the meditator trains, so that in life's challenges, calmness is their natural response. A story from the Buddhist tradition illustrates this mastery. A monk once faced a man who hurled insults at him day after day, yet the monk remained calm, responding neither with anger nor defense. Eventually the man asked, "Why do you not respond to my insults?" The monk replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong? In the same way, insults are gifts that can only harm if you accept them." This story encapsulates the mastery of the mind, recognizing that external words or actions cannot disturb you unless your mind clings to them. By training the mind not to accept every gift offered by others, you preserve your peace. Another layer of mental mastery lies in cultivating compassion. Often disturbances arise because we view others as threats, competitors, or obstacles. When someone harms us, our instinct is to retaliate. But compassion shifts this perspective. When you see that others act out of their own suffering and ignorance, it is easier to remain unbothered. Their harsh words are not truths about you, but reflections of their inner turmoil. Compassion allows you to respond with understanding instead of anger. Far from making you weak, this makes you unshakably strong, for you are no longer at the mercy of others' moods. Compassion transforms potential conflict into an opportunity for peace, and in doing so, it protects your mind from disturbance. In Buddhism, compassion is often linked with wisdom. Wisdom sees the impermanence and interdependence of all things. Compassion feels the shared suffering of all beings. Together, they create a mind that is both clear and kind, strong yet soft. When wisdom and compassion are alive in you, you can move through the world with a smile, even when others frown, with calm, even when chaos surrounds you. You act as if nothing bothers you because you see through the illusions that once held power over you, and you respond with love instead of fear. The mastery of the mind also requires patience. The mind is like a garden. If neglected, weeds grow wild. But if tended daily, beauty and nourishment flourish. You cannot expect instant transformation. There will be setbacks, moments when anger or anxiety return, times when the mind feels restless or overwhelmed. But each of these moments is part of the training. Every time you notice a reaction and choose calmness, you strengthen your mastery. Every time you fall into agitation, but later reflect on it mindfully, you deepen your understanding. Progress in mastering the mind is gradual, like water shaping stone. With persistence, the mind becomes more stable, less reactive, more serene. What does it look like then, to live with a mastered mind? It looks like freedom. Freedom from being enslaved by every passing thought. Freedom from the need for external validation. Freedom from the fear of change. You walk through life with the same challenges as others, but your responses are different. Where others panic, you remain calm. Where others retaliate, you respond with kindness. Where others despair, you see opportunity. This freedom is not given by the world. It is cultivated within you through discipline, awareness, and compassion. Imagine a storm raging outside. Most people live as if their peace depends on the weather. When the sun shines, they are happy. When the storm comes, they are distressed. But the one who has mastered the mind realizes that peace is an inner climate independent of outer conditions. The storm may rage, but inside there is stillness. This is the unshakable calm that Buddhism offers. It is not a fantasy, but a lived reality for those who practice diligently, and it is available to anyone willing to train their mind with patience and sincerity. To live as if nothing bothers you, then, is to live as one who has mastered the mind. It is to see thoughts and emotions arise without being controlled by them. It is to release craving and aversion, to embrace impermanence, to cultivate mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. This path is not easy, but it is transformative. It leads to a life of deep peace, resilience, and joy that is untouched by external turbulence. If this vision of freedom resonates with you and you wish to continue exploring the path to mastering the mind, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. Together, we will walk deeper into the teachings, practices, and insights that make peace possible even in the midst of chaos. Join us and let your journey to unshakable calm continue. Equanimity, compassion, and the strength of inner balance. Equanimity is one of the most profound jewels of Buddhist wisdom, and it lies at the heart of what it means to act as if nothing bothers you. It is not coldness or indifference, as some might mistakenly believe, but rather a radiant balance of mind that sees all things with clarity, steadiness, and compassion. In Buddhism, equanimity is called upekkha, and it represents the ability to remain calm and undisturbed amidst the ever-shifting tides of life. It is the stillness in the midst of the storm, the mountain unmoved by winds, the flame that does not flicker even when the air is restless. To embody equanimity is to walk through life with the same heart in joy and sorrow, success and failure, praise and blame, gain and loss. When one reaches this state, the world still moves, people still speak, circumstances still change, but the inner being remains centered, free, and unshaken. Equanimity does not mean detachment in the sense of disengagement. It does not mean withdrawing from life or refusing to feel. In fact, it allows you to feel more deeply, but without being enslaved by those feelings. You can experience love without clinging, pain without despair, and joy without grasping. Equanimity allows emotions to flow through you like a river without damming them up or letting them flood the mind. It is not about numbing yourself to protect from hurt, but about seeing through the illusions that create suffering. This is why the Buddha emphasized equanimity as one of the highest spiritual qualities, alongside loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy. Together, these qualities form the Brahmaviharas, or divine abodes, states of mind that elevate the human spirit to its highest potential. To live in equanimity, one must first understand the impartiality of reality. Life does not discriminate. It gives both blessings and hardships to all. The sun shines on the rich and the poor, the virtuous and the wicked. Storms strike regardless of reputation or power. Death comes for kings and beggars alike. This impartiality can feel cruel if viewed through the lens of attachment, but from the perspective of equanimity, it is liberating. For if life itself is impartial, then there is no need to cling to outcomes as if they define us. Gain and loss, success and failure, these are simply movements within the great dance of impermanence. When you stop identifying with them, you stop being disturbed by them. You act as if nothing bothers you, not because nothing happens, but because you no longer measure your worth or happiness by transient conditions. Equanimity also arises when we realize the limits of control. Much of human frustration comes from the illusion that we can control people, events, or outcomes. We want others to behave according to our expectations, circumstances to unfold according to our plans, life to obey our preferences. But this desire is an impossible burden. People act according to their own causes and conditions. Events unfold according to countless variables beyond our grasp. The more we cling to control, the more we suffer. Equanimity frees us from this burden by allowing us to accept what is beyond control while acting wisely in what is within it. It is like sailing. You cannot control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. When the wind changes, you do not curse it, you shift with it. This acceptance is not resignation, but wisdom. It allows you to engage with life fully while remaining inwardly free. Compassion is deeply intertwined with equanimity. Without compassion, equanimity could degenerate into detachment that is cold or aloof. But with compassion, equanimity becomes radiant and alive. Compassion sees the suffering of others and responds with care, but equanimity ensures that this care does not overwhelm or unbalance the mind. For instance, when seeing someone suffer, compassion motivates you to help, but equanimity keeps you from drowning in their pain or acting out of desperation. This balance is essential, especially for those who serve others, such as caregivers, teachers, or spiritual guides. Without equanimity, compassion can lead to burnout. With equanimity, compassion becomes sustainable, a steady flame that warms without being extinguished by the winds of suffering. In daily life, equanimity protects us from the extremes of emotional reactivity. When praised, the ego often swells with pride. When criticized, it shrinks with shame or anger. When we gain, we celebrate excessively. When we lose, we collapse into despair. This roller coaster of emotions keeps us restless and vulnerable. Equanimity steadies the ride. Praise and blame are seen as passing winds, not truths of your essence. Gain and loss are viewed as natural shifts in fortune, not measures of your value. Success is welcomed with gratitude but not clung to. Failure is acknowledged with humility but not feared. This balanced mind cannot be manipulated easily, for it does not depend on external validation or fear external judgment. It rests in its own clarity and strength. A famous Buddhist teaching describes the 8 worldly winds: praise and blame, gain and loss, pleasure and pain, fame and disrepute. Most people are blown about by these winds, elated when fortune blows in their favor, devastated when it turns against them. But the practitioner of equanimity learns to stand firm amidst all 8. To act as if nothing bothers you is to embody this stability. You may feel the winds, but you are not carried away. You stand like a mountain, rooted in wisdom, grounded in compassion, untouched by the fickle breezes of worldly conditions. The cultivation of equanimity also requires deep insight into karma, the law of cause and effect. When you understand that every action has consequences, you no longer need to react to others with anger or vengeance. If someone acts with cruelty, you trust that their actions will bear fruit according to their nature. This does not mean you approve of harm, but you recognize that your peace does not require you to retaliate. You can act wisely to prevent harm, but without hatred. Similarly, when you do good, you trust that goodness will bear fruit, even if not immediately. This trust in karma allows you to release anxiety about outcomes. You focus on planting seeds of wisdom and compassion, knowing the harvest will come in its time. This trust strengthens equanimity, for it aligns you with the natural law of the universe rather than fighting against it. One of the great challenges to equanimity is personal relationships. With those we love, equanimity is tested most strongly, for the heart clings and fears loss. Yet equanimity in love does not mean loving less. It means loving with freedom. To love with equanimity is to say, I care for you deeply, but I do not own you. I cherish this connection, but I accept that it is impermanent. I wish you happiness, even if it leads you away from me. Such love is not diminished by equanimity. It is elevated. It is no longer conditional or possessive, but boundless and pure. This love cannot be shaken by jealousy, fear, or loss. It acts as if nothing bothers it, because it rests in freedom rather than attachment. Equanimity also helps in conflict. When insulted, the untrained mind reacts defensively, often escalating the conflict. But with equanimity, you hear the insult without accepting it as truth. You recognize it as an expression of the other's suffering or ignorance. Instead of reacting, you respond with calmness or silence. This does not mean allowing abuse, but it means you act from strength rather than reactivity. The calm presence of equanimity often diffuses conflict more effectively than words of retaliation. In this way, equanimity becomes not only a personal refuge, but a source of peace in the world. Developing equanimity is a gradual practice. It begins with mindfulness, noticing when the mind is pulled by craving or aversion, when emotions arise strongly, when the winds of praise or blame shake us. By observing without judgment, we create a space in which balance can grow. Meditation on equanimity is another practice, where one reflects on the impartiality of life, the impermanence of all things, and the equality of all beings in their desire for happiness. Over time, this reflection seeps into the heart, transforming the way we respond to life. Patience and persistence are essential, for equanimity is not built in a day, but cultivated through countless moments of awareness and practice. When equanimity ripens fully, it becomes an unshakable refuge. No matter what storms rage outside, the mind rests in peace. You may lose wealth, health, or reputation, but you do not lose your center. You may experience joy and love, but you do not cling to them as permanent. You live fully, love deeply, and act wisely, but you remain free from the chains of reactivity. This is the state of acting as if nothing bothers you, not because life is easy, but because you have cultivated the strength to meet it with balance and compassion. Equanimity, therefore, is not the end of emotion, but the liberation of emotion from the prison of attachment. It allows joy to be joy, sorrow to be sorrow, without making either into a chain. It allows love to be love without clinging, compassion to be compassion without exhaustion. It is the harmony of wisdom and love, clarity and kindness, balance and strength. In this state, life continues in all its complexity, but the mind abides in simplicity. You become a presence of calm in a turbulent world, a refuge for yourself and others, a living example of the Buddhist way of freedom. And so, if you wish to walk this path of equanimity, compassion, and inner strength, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. Here we continue to share teachings, practices, and reflections to help you cultivate balance in a world of constant change. By joining us, you become part of a community dedicated to peace, resilience, and wisdom. Together, let us grow in equanimity and walk unshaken amidst the winds of life. The unshakable freedom of the inner path, the journey toward acting as if nothing bothers you, culminates in a profound realization. Freedom is not found in the rearrangement of external circumstances, but in the mastery of the inner landscape. The Buddhist path makes it abundantly clear that liberation does not come from bending the world to your will, but from dissolving the chains of clinging, aversion, and ignorance that bind the mind. When these fetters weaken, you discover a stillness within you that cannot be stolen, a freedom untouched by the rise and fall of fortune, and a peace that endures beyond pleasure and pain. This is not a superficial calm that pretends nothing matters. It is a deep, radiant strength born of wisdom, compassion, and insight. To act as if nothing bothers you is to walk through life with this unshakable freedom, embodying a presence that no storm can destroy. Freedom begins with seeing clearly. The mind, untrained, lives in a fog of delusion, confusing impermanent things for permanent, mistaking fleeting pleasures for lasting joy, and clinging to illusions of control. The Buddha compared unenlightened life to a dream, vivid and compelling, yet not real in the way we imagine. In this dream, we chase what cannot satisfy and resist what cannot be avoided. The result is endless restlessness. But when the fog of ignorance lifts through mindfulness and insight, reality reveals itself. We see that everything arises and passes away. We see that the self we cling to is a process, not a solid entity. We see that suffering is optional when we stop feeding craving and aversion. This clarity is liberating because it cuts through the illusions that once enslaved us. Imagine living in a prison your whole life without realizing it. You decorate the walls, compete with others for space, despair at the limitations, never knowing there is a door. Then one day you discover that the door has always been unlocked. Freedom was always possible, but ignorance kept you trapped. The Buddhist path is the discovery of that door. The door is opened through insight, and beyond it lies the vast expanse of peace. When you step through, you realize that nothing external has ever truly bound you. It was the mind's clinging that built the prison. Once the clinging dissolves, you act as if nothing bothers you because you are no longer imprisoned by illusions. But this freedom is not passivity. It does not mean sitting idly while the world turns. Rather, it empowers you to act more effectively because you act without the burden of ego, fear, or desperation. The mind free from clinging is sharp, present, and compassionate. It does not act to protect a fragile self-image or to satisfy endless craving. It acts from wisdom and love. Such actions are powerful because they are not entangled in reactivity. When insulted, you do not waste energy defending yourself. You respond wisely or not at all. When faced with injustice, you act firmly but without hatred. When confronted with loss, you grieve but remain anchored in peace. This is the freedom of the inner path, the ability to act with clarity in any situation without being controlled by it. At the heart of this freedom lies non-attachment. To the untrained mind, non-attachment sounds bleak, as though it means not caring. But in truth, non-attachment means caring without chains. It means you can love fully without fear, work diligently without anxiety, and live joyfully without clinging. Non-attachment removes the poison of fear from love, the desperation from ambition, the pride from success, and the despair from failure. It does not make you cold. It makes you radiant. You are free to give because you are not afraid of loss. You are free to act because you are not paralyzed by outcomes. You are free to live because you no longer demand that life obey your desires. This freedom is profound because it makes you resilient in every circumstance. Consider the story of the Buddha himself. After attaining enlightenment, he lived in a world still full of suffering, conflict, and ignorance. He was slandered, attacked, and opposed by many. Yet he remained serene, teaching with compassion until his last breath. His peace was not because the world was gentle, but because his mind was free. He embodied the truth that when the mind is liberated, external conditions cannot disturb inner calm. His life is a model, showing us that true strength does not lie in controlling others or circumstances, but in mastering the mind. This is the essence of acting as if nothing bothers you. The world continues as it is, but your freedom is complete because it does not depend on the world. The inner path also transforms our relationship with death. Much of human fear arises from the inevitability of death. We live clinging to youth, health, possessions, and relationships, knowing they will end but refusing to accept it. This denial fuels anxiety, insecurity, and restlessness. Buddhism teaches that to contemplate impermanence, including death, is not morbid, but liberating. When you accept death, you also accept life as it is. You stop clinging to permanence and start living fully in the present. Death becomes not a thief of joy, but a teacher of urgency, reminding you that every moment is precious. When you live this way, you act as if nothing bothers you because even death, the ultimate change, has lost its power to terrify you. You meet it with the same equanimity as every other change, knowing it is part of the natural flow. Freedom of the inner path also reshapes how we see others. When the mind is bound by ego, others are seen as threats, competitors, or tools. This perspective breeds jealousy, resentment, and hostility. But when the mind is free, others are seen as fellow travelers in impermanence, beings who suffer and long for happiness just as you do. This recognition gives rise to compassion. Compassion is not pity, but the deep wish that others be free from suffering. When compassion fills the heart, it becomes difficult to be disturbed by others' actions, even when they are unkind. You see that their cruelty arises from their own pain. You respond not with retaliation, but with understanding. This does not mean allowing harm, but acting to stop it without hatred. Compassion allows you to act strongly, yet remain unbothered, for your peace does not depend on others behaving as you wish. The inner path is also a path of simplicity. Much of our disturbance comes from complexity, the endless desires, ambitions, comparisons, and distractions we accumulate. We want more possessions, more recognition, more experiences, believing they will bring peace. Yet each new attachment becomes a potential source of disturbance. Simplicity strips away this burden. It teaches us that peace is not in accumulation, but in release. When you need less, you fear less. When you compare less, you envy less. When you cling less, you suffer less. Simplicity allows the mind to rest. It is not about rejecting life's beauty, but appreciating it without greed. When you live simply, you act as if nothing bothers you because your happiness is not tangled in countless conditions. It rests in the clarity of the present. One of the great paradoxes of the Buddhist way is that by letting go, you gain everything. When you stop chasing happiness, you discover it in the present. When you stop clinging to love, love deepens and flourishes. When you stop fearing loss, you begin to live freely. This paradox is at the heart of acting unbothered. The world teaches us to fight, to cling, to demand, to resist. But Buddhism teaches us to release, to accept, to flow. The strength of release is far greater than the strength of control. Control exhausts the mind. Release liberates it. In release, you find the unshakable freedom that allows you to face any situation with calm. To cultivate this freedom, one must practice daily. Meditation trains the mind to observe thoughts without clinging. Mindfulness trains awareness in every action, from eating to walking to speaking. Ethical conduct aligns actions with compassion, reducing inner conflict. Wisdom arises from contemplating impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Each practice reinforces the others, gradually transforming the mind. The path is long, but every step brings greater peace. Even small moments of mindfulness weaken the chains of disturbance. Over time, these moments accumulate, and the mind becomes like a polished mirror, reflecting reality clearly, undistorted by craving or aversion. What does life look like when you embody this inner freedom? It looks like strength without arrogance, love without chains, joy without clinging, and calm without pretense. You walk through noise yet carry silence within. You face challenges yet remain undisturbed. You live fully yet are free from desperation. This freedom radiates to others, inspiring calm in their presence. People feel peace around those who are unshaken because such presence is rare in a world of restlessness. In this way, your inner path becomes not only your liberation, but also a gift to the world. Ultimately, to act as if nothing bothers you is not to suppress emotion or deny reality. It is to live in alignment with reality so deeply that disturbances lose their grip. It is to know impermanence so intimately that you do not fear it. It is to see through the ego so clearly that insults and praise pass through you without leaving scars. It is to cultivate compassion so deeply that even in the face of cruelty, your heart remains open. It is to discover a freedom so complete that the world may change around you, but you remain steady, serene, and free. This is the unshakable freedom of the inner path. And so, if this vision of freedom and peace resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe to our channel. Here we continue to explore these teachings, practices, and insights, walking together on the path to unshakable calm. By joining us, you become part of a community dedicated to liberation, compassion, and wisdom. Let us walk this journey together, and may your life be filled with the freedom that comes from within.